Everyone, and welcome to OSDIA Interviews Live. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo, and joining me tonight is my co-host, our National President, Bob Bianchi. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great, Lisa. Thank you. How are you?
Great. We have our moderator down in Washington, D.C., Justin Smith. Justin, hello.
How are you?
And we are so honored to be joined by tonight's special guest, NCAA women's basketball legend, Geno Auriemma of the University of Connecticut, UConn Huskies. Geno, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on.
So most of your interviews are obviously based around basketball, right? And all of your successes you've had on the court. And we will definitely get into that tonight. But here on OSDIA Interviews Live, it's all about celebrating Italian culture and pride, something that you have a lot of. Please share with our audience your Italian background.
I've been in this country for 60, it'll be 60 years, November 22nd.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so I came over when I was 7 years old with my mother, my brother, and my sister. I was the oldest, so I was 7. My brother was 5. My sister was 1. I think she was 1. And my father had been here for about a year. Back then, you know, you had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations to get into the country. So it was 13 days on a ship coming over from Naples. It was a thrill of a lifetime for a 7-year-old to be, you know, around all those sailors and all those people and being out in the ocean. For every morning you wake up, all you see is water. You know, it's thinking back on it, I don't know if I could do it today, but back then you were a little kid and you were just excited to, you know, be going to a new country and you didn't know what to expect. And, you know, so for me, it's been a long journey of that, going to school. I remember the first, we got in a car in New York City, right? And we drove down Jersey Turnpike to Norristown, right outside Philadelphia. And my uncle picked us up, you know, and he drove us down in his car. And we got to his house because we were going to be living at his house for, you know, for a while, a couple of years, it turned out, 3 years. And we get up to, I think it was the next day or 2 days later. I'm not even sure. I have to check what day it was in 1961. But I ran out. I jumped in the car. You know, I had never been in a car like that. So I jumped in the car because we were going to go to mass. But the church was like a block away and I wanted to ride. I didn't want to walk. You know, I just wanted to be in that car as many times as I could. But I remember going to school and wearing clothes that my mother had made me and looking really weird, like compared to everybody else, and not being able to say even a word of English. I knew nothing, you know. I remember one quick story. My aunt took me to the school and we met with the teacher, and I didn't understand a word the teacher was saying. And my aunt would translate for me. And apparently the teacher told her, you know, this is 2nd grade and this is November. And even though you're getting a late start, you know, in June, all the kids that pass are going to go to 3rd grade, and all the kids that don't pass are going to have to do 2nd grade all over again. And my aunt's explained this to me, and I'm like, all right. And today, you know, like I kid when I ask people about it. I said, you know, was there like English as a second language? Did you have tutors? Did you have, you know, Rosetta Stone? Did you have anything? Like, I just laugh and I go, no, you just had to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that was my first indoctrination into, you better learn English and you better learn it fast, and the value of making friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob?
Yeah, Coach, I was kind of wanted to ask you a question about that. So you didn't speak a word of English. It actually reminds me of my great grandfather, although he was extremely well educated and spoke 7 languages, Greek and Latin included. He didn't
Wow.
speak English when he immigrated to the United States, and yet he went to medical school at University of Maryland Medical School and learned English while he was at medical school. So fascinating story. But let me ask you, how did that affect you? Was your family the kind of family that many Italian families were, where they wanted you to learn English and assimilate into the country and kind of step away a little bit from those Italian roots so that you seemed more quote unquote American?
Yeah, well, that's something that, as you know, time went on, I wanted to do. Because what ends up happening is, I'm sure most of you probably already know, what ends up happening is you move to America or you move to another country. But in this case, you moved to Norristown. But it felt like after about 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the entire town of Montella, Italy moved with us. So there was like the same people you were living with over there are now living in Norristown. So I was going to a school called St. Francis, which was a block away from where we lived. So when we bought a house, finally, after three or 4 years, we moved to a different part of Norristown. And I had a choice. I could go to Holy Savior, which was, you had to be Italian to go to Holy Savior. One of your parents had to be Italian. Or you could just go to St. Francis, where it was a mix of everybody. And my mother flat out said, you're not going to Holy Savior. We didn't come here for you to hang around with Italian kids. So you need to go to a school where, you know, and I would come home and I would only speak English once I learned the language. I would only speak English to my parents so I could teach them how to speak. And they would only speak Italian, so I never forgot how to speak Italian. It was a great arrangement. And it's kind of how I grew up.
Yeah, it's so interesting. My grandparents, they immigrated from Calabria and Sicily, and it was kind of the same thing. My parents really don't speak because it was very important for them to assimilate to American culture.
Absolutely. And sometimes if you're not careful, you know, and I probably made this mistake because I had never been to school. So I really didn't know the language. I didn't know anything. And my mother can't read or write. She never spent a day of school in her life. And she's 90 now. And my father passed away in 1997. I think he went as far as 4th grade. So it wasn't like you were brought up in a home where education was valued and you were taught every day, you know, about the value of education. It was, you know, it was two parents working in factories and spoke a dialect of Italian that, unless you live in a, you know, when you go to Italy, and I go to Italy all the time now, people ask, hey, you speak Italian? I said, no, I don't speak Italian. I speak dialect. You speak io parlo dialetto. And they always go, see, and they understand it all. But then when they start talking, when I go to Florence or I go to Venice or I go to Rome, I sit there and I go, what country am I in? I don't understand a damn word they're saying. And it takes me like 2 days to kind of figure out. And then once I get caught up, I'm okay. But they understand immediately and they laugh. I can see the smile on their face when I say some words, and they just kind of shake their head. They go, "This guy must be some country bumpkin or something from down."
No. Where is your town located?
It's about an hour and change east of Naples in the mountains. So we lived in a town of about 5,000 people. About an hour and change east of Naples in the mountains. So in the mountains, correct. About 5,000 people. Yeah, near the nearest town, big town, is Avellino.
Yeah, that's not too far. We come from Avellino, a town called Andretta. Doesn't sound like it's too far from where you're referring to, Coach.
Probably not.
But I'm curious. A person who came from that background and then rises to the level of being the prolific, unbelievably talented coach of a women's basketball team. How did you make that transition from a boy that comes over here at 7 years old speaking no English to the best coach ever of a female basketball team? How did that happen?
Like most things happen, you know, by accident. You know, some people, you know, I marvel at these people that have their whole life planned out for them, and they know at what age they're going to be doing what, you know. And mine was none of that. When I said that I went to school and I didn't speak the language, the only way I could learn was make friends with the other kids in 2nd grade and then hang out with them. So where are you going to hang out with them? You're going to hang out in the playground. And we lived right across the street from a public school. and there was a playground there. So all I had to do was walk across the street and there was always kids there, and that's how I learned. So I got into sports at a really early age because my next door neighbor, he loved baseball. And he was a little bit older than me. And every day he would make me come out and we would get a catch and he taught me how to hit. And baseball became a passion for me. I played every single day. And then when I went to high school, I played basketball and all that other stuff. But so, sports has always been a part of my life. I've always been on some kind of a team. And then somebody asked me one day, he said, you want to help me coach this basketball team? I said, of what? And he said, it's high school girls basketball. I said, no, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, because, you might be pretty good at it. I said, I don't really have any interest in that. And he kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. And finally I went, and I'm just finishing playing in college. I'm 21. These kids are 16, 17. And I'm trying to help them learn basketball. And the look on their face is like, wow, this is really cool. And I thought, man, I think they like this. And I think I'm having an effect on these kids. So little by little, I stayed in it. I coached boys in high school. And next thing you know, I end up at the University of Virginia as a coach, assistant coach. And 4 years later, I'm here in Connecticut and people say, did you have this all planned out? I said, no, this was one giant accident from a guy bugging me all the time about, I said that, and I didn't think I would stay in it this long. And here I am, 37 years at Connecticut and 46 years as a coach total.
How did those formative years, though, coming to a new country, learning the language, how did that shape you into the person and coach that you are today?
I think that a lot of, it is true that the boys really do get a lot of their stuff from their moms, and my mother is a great example of someone who, as I mentioned, she can't read and she can't write. She's never driven a car, no checkbook, no credit cards, nothing. And is very self-sufficient and is probably one of the smartest people in the United States. But it's always been about figuring out how to survive at the next thing that you're asked to do. And for me, that idea of figure it out has helped me teach my players. We can't explain everything to you that might happen. The world doesn't work that way. There's a lot of stuff that you have to figure out. So I'm going to give you this much information and I'm going to make you figure out the rest. That way, you're going to be a smart basketball player, not just a kid who runs up and down. So my coaching really comes from how I grew up and how I was taught. How Italian moms, they love everybody. They invite everybody in. They're compassionate. They just are people. And I think I really got those genes from my mother. And I think it's been the one stabilizing factor in my personality as a coach.
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what's the biggest change that you've made either in yourself or your program from your first season to your current season that has helped you become as successful as you are?
Those people that are on online here, if you're in any kind of business, which this is, it's all about recruiting and acquiring talent and trying to get the best people to come join your program. And my first couple of years, we didn't have access to the best people. So we had to really scramble to get people, and we had to work our butt off to teach them how to be what we wanted them to be. Now I have access to the best players in the world. So it's a little bit different than the recruiting process. But what we've had to change is the mindset of the people that you have to bring in. It's coming here is like playing for the Yankees. If you might be really good in Milwaukee, no disrespect to Milwaukee, or you might be really good, in Connecticut. But if you're not, if you want to play for the Yankees, you've got to be something special to play in New York and be able to handle all that pressure and all the expectations that go with that. And that's the same thing here. So it's a different kind of kid that you have to find that can survive in this kind of atmosphere. And I've had to adjust to the way kids are today. You know, people say today's kids. You know, I have a quote that, you know, it said that today's kids are ruining the country, and they have none of the characteristics of their parents. And it was said by Plato. You know, so it's these comments have been made since the beginning of time, but we have to deal with a whole different generation of kids that's grown up with this in their hand, and no other generation has done that. So this is a different kind of kid that you're dealing with today.
Lisa, if you don't mind, I just want to ask the coach one thing, just to spin off on that. Mindset's big with me, coach. I actually have a radio show where we talk a lot about mindset in terms of professional and personal. And I wanted to ask you, because you're dealing with pressure situations as a leader, you have to lead these young students. You talked about the word mindset. What do you find is in your personal success, the mindset that set you forward? Was it just having that little information and going with the flow? Or when you've had down times in your life, what can you tell our audience about where your resiliency came from and how you pass that off to your students?
You know, I've always felt like I could be good at whatever I set my mind to. Whether that was true or not, it didn't matter. The fact that I thought like that allowed me to be successful, I think. I think some people go into different or new situations and they have a negative mindset. They automatically assume the worst. They see what all the problems are in that situation. I've never thought like that. My thinking has always been, what's the downside? I just go back to Norristown and go drive a truck for one of my friends. What's the downside? So I'm always looking at what's the upside of me making this change or me making this decision. So I'm always trying to impress upon my kids, my students here and my kids at home. There is no downside to trying things, to taking risks. There is no pressure when you're asked to do something that you're good at. Pressure is when somebody asks you to do something you're not good at. That's my message to all my players all the time. I said, pressure is your mom having to feed and clothe 3 kids if she's a single mom and then go to work and pay the bills. That's pressure. Somebody asking you to go play basketball, that's not pressure. That's fun because you do this all the time. And what happens if you lose? You don't get thrown out of your house. They don't turn off the heat. You don't lose your friends. Your family doesn't disown you. You just lost the game. Tomorrow, we move on. But what's the upside if you do win? Oh, the whole world opens up to you. So I've never thought, what's the downside? What's the downside?
I say, Lisa, how much does that remind us of astronaut Mike Massimino when he said he knew that the possibility of him becoming an astronaut was slim to none, but he knew that it would be 0 if he didn't try, Lisa.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah. Hey, it's the reason why my production company, Bob, is Long Shot Productions. That's really how I got that name. Because when I was tasked with, am I going to go off and do my own thing instead of working for a network, right? Because, Geno, you would appreciate this. I got my start in media at WFAN. So I know you're very familiar with them. Mike and Mad Dog. Yeah. And, you know, when it came time to, do I continue on this path or do I do something completely different? The name Long Shot came to mind because I have my sports background, and also, you know, I cannot take the shot, right? And it's a long shot that this might work out, but it really might. And here we are. So
that's right. That's exactly right.
Italian resiliency.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So Coach, I want to talk about, you know, we're talking about warriors, and I want to talk about somebody that I know you hold very near and dear to your heart, because you have a ton in common with them: basketball, Philadelphia, and Italy. And that person is Kobe Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have chills seeing you deliver that speech at his memorial last year, you know, on behalf of Kobe and his daughter, Gianna. Can you reflect on that relationship and those shared passions that you both enjoyed?
Yeah. I played against Kobe's father in high school. And the first time I met Kobe, I said, go back and tell your dad there was a game one time when we played and he didn't score on me. I shut him out. And Kobe started laughing. His father's 6'10", and his father was a great pro. But what actually happened was there was a 5-second point in the game where I was guarding him, and they passed the ball to somebody else. So I always go around telling people Kobe's dad didn't score on me when we played against him. But the interesting thing about Kobe is having been born in Italy, having lived in Italy all that time, and learning the culture and learning the language, and then having girls, I think it made him like a girl dad, so as competitive as he was on the basketball court and in life, he was really, really a dad, a softy when it came to his kids. So there was two completely sides of this guy: the guy that would rip your heart out on the basketball court, and the guy that was like a pushover for his 3 girls. And we would talk all the time about his passions, about being great. And he was always studying how to be better. And he had these programs for these kids to teach them not just how to play. And he would write books about it. And he just had this way of giving back, and I miss him, even today, I think the whole world misses him. Nobody misses him more than his family. But he'll always belong. Italy takes credit for him, and Philadelphia takes credit for him, and Los Angeles takes credit for him. But he really belonged to the whole world.
He really did. And the way you honored his daughter too, having a jersey on the bench as soon as everything happened, I thought was a very beautiful tribute. Yeah,
she was a really neat little kid. She was kind of in his image. The other 2 girls, not so much. Obviously, one is very young, but Gia, she wanted to be like her dad. She was tough. She was fearless. At a young age, he knew it. So he took her to all these places to show her and to let her experience all that. I guess we'll never know. We'll never know.
Heartbreaking. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Justin, I know that we have a ton of viewers watching on Facebook Live right now, writing in questions. Can we take a couple?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Lisa Marie said, they're coming in hot and heavy. But one jumped out at me, and I wanted to bring this up first. A gentleman named Vince DiGregorio, and I recognize his name. He's a frequent viewer of our program. He wrote, "My mother, Maria DiGregorio, is from the same hometown of Montella, Avellino. As Geno's family, his mom went to school with your mom, Marziale, and he wanted to send a hello from his family and see how your mother was doing." He said, yeah. Well, so a small world.
My mother may have been walking by that school to go to work, but she never went inside. My mother's 90 now, and her mind is still sharp as a tack. She doesn't move around as much as she used to. She still cooks, and she had some allergies one time and went to the doctor, and the doctor gave her these, scratch tests, and he said, "You're allergic to tomatoes, dust, and coffee." And she said, "I might as well kill myself. All I do is clean, cook, and drink coffee. What the hell's there to live for?" So she's got a great sense of humor, and I'll tell her she always loves hearing about Italy and hearing about the old country.
What a small world. Many of our viewers have written in, and they're curious about, obviously you have an extremely busy schedule with basketball season, then in the off season, recruiting, and how often do you get to go back to Italy? And when you go back, where do you go? All over? Do you go back to your hometown? Our viewers were curious about that.
I have lots of relatives back there still, aunts and uncles, cousins. And I've been back to my hometown twice. And obviously it's changed a lot. And I've been back to Italy a lot. But when I go over there, unless I have like a lot of time to kill, I don't go back to my hometown because you know what happens. If you only stop and see 4 people and don't see the other 10, they're going to kill you when you leave, and then they'll embarrass the hell out of you. So unless I have a lot of time, so normally when I go there, it's either been, you know, I've got a week and I'll go over or I'm traveling with USA basketball, with the Olympic team, or with my team, or with some group that I'm hosting over there from the University of Connecticut. But I've been every place in Italy that I've wanted to go to. And the place I keep going back to is this little, the actual town of Amalfi. There's a hotel there that we go to every 2 years. We couldn't go because of COVID, but it's like my favorite place in the world. And, you know, when you try to describe the people that have never been there and seen it, there's a lot of beautiful places in the world, obviously. But to me, that's home. That's the most beautiful place in the world.
You can't beat Amalfi. Can't beat the Amalfi
No.
Coast, and especially
No.
Amalfi.
Hey,
No,
Coach,
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, you're certainly not, even though you're great at what you do with that basketball court stuff and your women basketball team, but you're not a one-trick pony either. You have your own line of businesses, I understand, with your own wines. And I have a follow-up question to this, sauce, as well as a cafe in Connecticut. How did your background and your culture, I mean, there's many things you could do, and I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to have you be a part of that. Why did you pick that? And tell us where we can find all that stuff.
Well, the cafe, the restaurant that I have in Connecticut, in the town that I live in, Manchester, we bought an existing restaurant in a building from an Italian family that had been operating a restaurant there since 1933. And it was one of the best restaurants, not just in Connecticut, but probably in the country. And they just couldn't do it anymore. And I would go there 2 or 3 times a week. And it got a little bit old. So I bought the building, I bought the restaurant, and I turned it into what you would find if you went to New York City. You went to New York City and you walk in, that's the kind of restaurant that it is. It's an Italian steakhouse, kind of, sort of. And I love being around people. And what better way to be around people than go to a restaurant and enjoy people's company? So that's always been something I've wanted to do. From the time I was young, I would always drive by restaurants and go in and go, man, someday I want to have one of these. And it's always been in the back of my mind. The wine thing, we have some wines that are made in Italy that we sell over here in America, and probably go on our website. Actually, if you go on Cafe Aura, AURA.com, you can probably find where you can get some of the wines that we have. But really, the wines are just a hobby. So is the sauce that we make. It's got my picture and my mother's picture on there. She likes that. I don't ever remember making a dime off of any of those things. Somebody's getting paid. Hopefully it's somebody that I know in my family or somebody, but I don't remember ever getting a dime out of those wines and that sauce. But I've always enjoyed it, and I want to do more of it. One of my projects is going to be promoting Southern Italian wines here in this country, because I don't think they receive the kind of attention that the Tuscany wines, the Piedmont wines, the Sicilian wines, the Southern Italian wines around Naples that are just amazing wines, but people in this country don't know that much about them. That's my next project.
Well, when you're ready to launch that, you have a built-in audience here with about 90,000 Facebook followers. So we'll have you back on for sure.
I was just about to say that, Lisa. I mean, we would love to have that as a part of a program. But I got to get to the sauce part for 1 second. I'm just curious. It's a question I ask all the guests. Would you be offended? Would you be offended? I'm not asking you, but would you be offended if you called it gravy instead of sauce?
Who calls it gravy? I never understood
Bob
that.
does for some reason.
I never understood that. I never understood where that came from. Gravy is like brown that you put on mashed potatoes and stuff.
Yes.
You know, sauce is red and it's got like, you know, garlic and oil and, you know, and we make it plain, just basil. You know, we don't put anything in it because who wants to buy something that's already got a bunch of junk in it? You want to put your own stuff in there. So, you know, the best sauce is plain. It doesn't take anything. You smash. My mother would go to New Jersey and buy the best tomatoes in America come from New Jersey. And you buy those Jersey tomatoes, man, she would fill the whole. We don't have a garage. We didn't have a garage. We didn't have a car until I was, you know, a senior in high school. So the garage became, you just dump all the tomatoes in there, lay them all out, and then get the machine, you know, and get the ball jars and make you got enough for 3 years, and you got enough for everyone in your family. And it's just red sauce with basil in it. That's it. That's all you need.
You know, Coach, when my mother was sick and ready to pass, myself and my sister had to make we call it gravy here in Jersey, at least in the area I'm in.
I don't, by the way, and we're both in Jersey, but anyway.
For Christmas. And I was sick as a kid, so I grew up on my mother's hip, and she was teaching me how to cook. And my sister and myself were having an argument on how to make the gravy. My sister wanted to make it more complex, and I was making it more simple. And my sister was arguing, but that's how Mom taught me how to make it. So we went to her, and she said, well, when I was getting more sophisticated, I thought putting more ingredients in would be a good thing. But then I switched back to the way I used to make it simple. Because you know what, kids? I found out, like everything in life, simpler is better. I was always bringing that message.
Definitely.
I think that is the absolute truth, man. I hate when you go into a restaurant and they got all this complicated stuff in there. Relax, man. Just make the pasta, put it on there, and don't smother it either. This isn't, you know, no disrespect. This isn't Olive Garden. You know, this is a real good restaurant where, you know, sauce is meant to be an accompaniment to the pasta. It's not supposed to overwhelm the pasta. You're not supposed to have sauce and then a little bit of pasta with it. It's supposed to be the other way around.
And Coach, what's the name of your restaurant?
Cafe Aura, Aura.
Lisa?
I love it. Well, Coach, next time
we actually just got a Wine Spectator Award for our wine list.
Wow.
So yeah, you should look it up.
Well, Coach, next time you're in New Jersey, you have to stop by and pick up a jar of homemade from my house. This summer with my grandparents, we made with the fresh Jersey tomatoes. My grandparents, God bless them, 89 and 93 years old, and
awesome.
They're still making sauce.
Well, I go to New Jersey. I bought a house in Avalon, New Jersey. We've been going there for years and years and years, and I love going there. I can't imagine spending a summer anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, Coach, I think that we could talk to you forever, but we would like to have you say just one final word about the importance of your Italian heritage, and to our audience out there, a lot of people suffering from COVID and being tired of being stuck at home. What words of wisdom can you give to them?
I don't know that it's any wisdom, but I always said this. I said it to my kids, who are very, very proud. My grandson, he's 8, and he had to write a little paper for school. He's in second grade, third grade, whatever he is, second grade. And the first thing he wrote up top, my name's Andrew, and you should know one thing about me. I'm Italian. I mean, that's the first thing he wrote on his paper, right? His father's Italian. Obviously, my daughter's, Italian. I've tried to impress upon my kids that the fact that we also, I grew up thinking that I have something no one else has. I have the ability to have lived 2 different cultures. I've had experience in a way of life that and this goes for any immigrant, not just Italian. I think this goes for any immigrant living in this country. They're so fortunate because they have experiences that other kids who don't have that opportunity will ever have. And for me, as an Italian kid growing up, there was always a feeling like, why do you always want to come to my house for dinner? I know why. Why do you always want to eat my lunch when I go to school? I know why. Because you guys are bringing ham and cheese sandwiches and I'm bringing sausage and peppers. So, I always thought like, You know, you ask some of my friends that I grew up with, they ask them, where's the best restaurant in Norristown? They'll tell you, you know, Geno's mom's basement. You know, just go there and eat, and you're not going to get it. So, you know, and we had this way about us, you know, the way we talk and the way we are as people. I think we've made a lot of what's good in this country is because of what Italians have done.
Amen.
Now, that doesn't mean that we're any better than anybody else. That just means we've had an impact. We've made an imprint in this country. And if you're ever sitting at home, you know, and you're feeling down, and, you know, just, we're people. So pick up the phone, call your friends, go out, meet them for coffee. You know, we've been stuck inside for all this time, but that's not the Italian thing. The Italian thing is mingling. It's putting your arms around people. You know, one of my players just sent me something today. It's a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio. And it says, only two things get better with age: Italians and wine.
That's a great way to try. I'm so glad, Coach, that Paul Polo, who you know is the past president of the Sons of Italy, connected us. And we do look forward to having you back to do that wine show at some point in time. But Lisa, unfortunately, we got to take it home.
I want to do that. And, you know, Paul Polo could ask me to jump off a bridge. And as long as he was jumping with me, I would do it. There isn't anything that he could ask of me that I wouldn't do if I possibly can. He's one of the finest people I've ever met.
That's great, Coach.
I love it. Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. I wish I had some iota of athleticism in my body, because I would have loved to have played for you.
Well,
when I was college eligible, because you just seem like so fun to be around on and off the court. So we thank you for this. So before we wrap, we have some news that we'd like to share. Our show, OSDIA Interviews Live, will be debuting on television this Sunday night at 8 p.m. on News 12 Plus across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Coach, maybe you can get the channel. Yes. You can find News 12 Plus on Verizon 530 and Optimum 61. Our first show features comedian and entertainer Joe Piscopo. So we are so excited to bring OSDIA Interviews Live to the next level on local television. And Coach, you'll be part of a future episode as well.
I hope so. Definitely. I would love to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Coach. Justin, tell the folks how they can join our social media platforms and our organization, please.
Yeah, absolutely. They can head straight to www.osia.org. You can click on the Join as a Member tab, find the nearest local lodge, or sign up directly online as an at-large member. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at nationaloffice@osia.org. And as Bob said, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Pinterest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Appreciate it. All right.
Thank you. And we'll see everyone back here next week on OSDIA Interviews Live.